Welcome again. In this video, we will discuss the concept of security controls. In last video, we discussed the concept behind CIA triad, and we understood that we can achieve security by implementing security controls. But we mentioned that security controls need to be proportional and need to be justified. We will understand how to justify the security control cost in later, but when we discuss the risk management process. But now we are discussing what are the types of security controls in great much of details. Security controls, the by the book definition, means or identify security controls as safeguard to avoid, detect, or minimize security risk to any asset. Remember, we didn't mention here to eliminate security risk. We could not eliminate security risk by 100%. We could only avoid, detect, and minimize. But we cannot eliminate. The full elimination is not an option, unfortunately. Security controls could encompass the use of technical and non-technical methods. For instance, when I mention that I need to secure a building, so I implement security cameras, this is a technical control. But when I say that I will hire a security guard, this is non-technical control. So security controls can be technical and can be non-technical. Security controls need to be proportional and need to be cost effective in terms of the criticality of the system or the asset we are trying to protect. So for instance, you cannot hire a professional service or a professional security service to hire a business or to hire an asset with no economic value, where the contract of this service exceeds the value of this building, for instance. So that's what we mean when we say that security control costs need to be justified and need to be relevant to the assets that we are trying to protect. Controls can be categorized in many ways. One of each ways in when we use the control in regard to the attack. So we have controls that we can use before the attack, we have controls that we can use during the attack, and we have controls that we can use after the attack. For instance, when we say that controls that can be used before the attack we are doing a kind of preparation. So we are building our building, we are designing the location of security cameras, and we implement the security cameras. The reason for the security cameras is to detect if there is an intrusion is happening. And once the intrusion happens, security cameras can trigger the during controls. During security controls can help us to identify the attack and can also notify the law enforcement, for instance, so the police or the security team can hurry and go to the location where the attack or the intrusion is happening and prevent the attack. So this is what we mentioned by saying during controls. We also have another definition which is during after the attack, and after the attack this a kind of it is a corrective control. Corrective control can be used to limit the damage, recover from the attack, and so on. We will understand this part in great much of details when we discuss it from technical term. So there is another definition or another categorization for security controls, which is the type of security control. We have technical control, we have administrative, we have physical control. Technical control is anything related to IT system. When we say that firewall, it is a technical control. Antivirus software, it is a technical control. When we discuss a background check, that which is a process that human resource team do when they are trying to hire new employee, they do a kind of background check to ensure the integrity of this employee, it is integral person or not, and so on. So this is a kind of administrative control. Having a policy in place that is describing what is the good actions or what is the good behavior, it is a kind of administrative controls as well. We also may find another type of control, which is the physical control, and physical control can be something like the fence, something like the locks, and so on. So generally we has these two kinds of control. We have categorization based on when we are going to use this control, and technical and non-technical, administrative and physical control. In before attack control, we use mainly preventive controls, and in during the attack, we mainly use detective control, and after attack, we mainly use corrective control. Here we have a definition or a definition of each function. We have the first class is the preventive control. Preventive control can be used to detect, monitor, and also can help to control access as well as prevent the error from happening. So if you are aware about security, you may find or you may know or heard before about the intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system. Intrusion detection system, for instance, detects the attack, but it cannot be used to prevent the attack. So intrusion detection system can be categorized as a detective control, but intrusion prevention system can be used to detect the attack and also prevent the attack. So intrusion prevention system, although it do a detect, but also it can do a prevention. So it is in this way a preventive control. We also has the third class of the control, which is the corrective control, and corrective control can be used after the attack to minimize the impact. For instance, if I have a backup solution in place, backup solution or the backup process is a kind of corrective control. What happens if I get infected by a virus that I can restore a backup or a recent backup that was not infected? So by doing a restoration for the backup, I get my data back. So this minimized or eliminated the impact after the incident. So this is what does corrective control means. Corrective control or controls in general should has a control objective, and control objective are statements of the desired result achieved by implementing a certain control. Control objective provide reasonable assurance that business objective will be achieved and the undesired event will be prevented, detected, or corrected. The strongest control consists of 9 layers. For to understand this, we need to go to the next slide. As you can see here, in regard to preventive control, we can apply preventive control in many ways. We can apply it using managerial controls. We can use it, we can implement it using technical control, and we can implement it using physical control. So the most strongest type of preventive control is the control that consider these three types. If I asked you that we need to make a kind of control for a building, so you will answer by doing a security gate. In security gate, we have a kind of a technical control, have a kind of physical control by implementing a fence. But also we can apply a technical control in conjunction with the physical control. For instance, by doing a kind of RFID scan or doing a kind of access control by using a badge, and this badge is scanned to a special reader or a special scanner to ensure that this person is really entitled to access this building. So we applied a preventive control for accessing a building by two ways. First one is a physical by implementing a fence, and second way by implementing access card reader and so on. We also may implement the preventive by managerial control or administrative control by doing a kind of user registration process, by filling a form. If you need an access, you need to get an approval from your manager. So here we applied the preventive control in using the three ways, using the managerial, technical, physical. Of course, you cannot apply all controls all the way by all of these solutions. You may not find that preventive control is implemented or considered in these three parts, but that what is the definition of a strong control. Stronger control is a control that consists of 9 layers. For instance, when we speak about the detective control, which is detect attack, we consider administrative controls, physical controls, and technical controls. When we implement a preventive control, we consider also the administrative, preventive, and technical. When we implement a corrective control, we also consider administrative, physical, and technical. That's what strongest controls mean. Let's understand now security controls in action. We remember this graph or this slide which we saw in our last video when we saw that the threat actor, which can be a script kiddie or a hacker or one of the black hat hackers, use a threat, and this threat is delivered by an attack to exploit a vulnerability tied with an asset. Once this vulnerability is successfully exploited, we will cause an impact to this asset. So we can use a kind of control which is called a deterrent control. And deterrent control is a kind of control that limits the likelihood for the attack. For instance, if I have a fence surrounding my building, so I will have opportunity to deter the casual trespassing or to deter the thief, because he may find that I have a security cams in place. So having a security cams will make the thief think before trying or thinking about intruding or access my area, because he will know that he will be his footage will be recorded, and I can catch him, or I can provide the law enforcement police with his image, for instance. So deterrent control is reducing the likelihood, and we didn't discuss that in our last slides. We only discussed the detective and preventive and corrective. Take a note that we also have a kind of control which is a deterrent control, and a deterrent control is simply reducing the likelihood. We have also the detective control, and detective control is used before the attack, and detective control during the attack detect the attack. Detective control has also another mission to trigger the response. For instance, if we have a security camera is a detective control. Once the motion sensor or in the security camera detect a motion, he will inform the security team or the physical security guard. Security guard in this case is the preventive security or the preventive control. They will be triggered or they will be notified that there is an attack, so go and handle this attack. Preventive control such as security guard or firewall can protect the vulnerability and also limit the impact by reducing the impact of the vulnerability. And lastly, we have the corrective control. Corrective control can be used to limit the damage by decreasing the impact happened after successful exploitation. And exploitation means that the attack was successful in exploiting this kind of vulnerability. So this is the description or how these controls are used in place. We have another term that we need to understand about from CISA perspective, which is a compensating control. Compensating control can be used if we are for any reason cannot use the approved control by a standard or the approved control for any reason. For instance, we may find that to solve a certain problem, we need to use a firewall with a certain type of encryption. But due to legal requirement or regulatory requirement in the country that I am currently existing in, using this kind of control is not possible or is not accepted. So I search for another type of control or another type instead of the firewall that could give me the same outcome. For instance, we can find this example here. We have a kind of system, and this system cannot or we in our policy should not use shared account. Shared account means that you have a system with a single username. However, our policy does not approve this, and this system unfortunately is a legacy system and doesn't have the ability to create named account, creating an account for every member from the team. So in this case, we can implement something such as a one-time password by integrating this system with an OTP provider to do a kind of multi-factor authentication. So whenever anybody uses this shared account, he will be asked to provide authentication, the second authentication factor, and this authentication factor will be linked with something with every individual, and this thing is unique for every employee, so I can track who is using this shared account. Using a privileged access management server is a kind of compensating control as well in this case. We need also to understand that there is another term which is a countermeasure, and countermeasure is a targeted controls that is covering a specific area. We need to understand from the CISA exam perspective that the best control is the control that is already in place, that we can use to protect not only a single threat but all the threats related to a certain asset. So controls need to not be very customized, it need to be general and need to be cost effective. Data owners specify controls and data custodian protect the information and operate these controls. For instance, if we look at the network security field, in network security we are managing firewalls, we are managing IPS and so on. IPS and firewall in this case are controls. The owner of these controls might be the business or might be the department that have the service or the asset that we purchased the firewall to protect it. But the custodian of this control will be the network security team because they will be obligated to manage these controls. But the case of firewall is not very relevant here. We can find this case more relevant when we talk about shared access or shared folder. The file share folder, for instance, include data owned by the data owner or owned by a business department. But the business department does not have the necessary skills to manage the permissions. So he delegates the permission management to someone called a controlled or a data custodian. Data custodian, such as the network security or the identity access management team or system administration team, will be responsible for protecting and preserving the confidentiality of the information that he will be a custodian on it. He will use his skills to implement the security access as per data owner requirement. So that's a lot for a single video, but I hope it is informative. This is a recorded video, so in case you are not understanding any part of this, you can replay it again and check the information. And of course, you can tell me in comments what do you think and if you have any question. I hope this video is informative and see you in the next video.